Hey, what's going on out there, YouTube family? This is Samuel Leggett representing Team JVS. This is my review for the Netflix original film, Uncorked. So, this was directed by and created and written by Prentice. He was notable from Insecure, I think Girlfriends, and one other show. I think it's Happy Endings. But they have a pretty good stacked cast, but I'm going to try to break this down as best I can. The cast encompass Courtney B. Vance is the father of the story, Lewis. We've got, I'm going to get his name, pronunciation his name wrong, I apologize. Mamoudou Athie plays the role of Elijah, the main character that is going through all of this. They got Sasha Compare, plays the role of Tanya, his eventual love interest. And then you got Niecy Nash, who plays the role of the mom. That is Sylvia, and a lot of other notable characters. But the story arc is this. So you have Elijah must balance his dream of becoming a master Samir with his father's expectations that he carry on the family Memphis barbecue joint. Now, I think that the first thing I can go and comment on this film is that they had an amazing cinematographer. Like the cinematography for it, even in the opening shot, it definitely gave you best of both worlds. Like you get to see like the functioning things that Lewis's father has to do to deal with the meat, deal with the processing, deal with like the aesthetic of running a business, running a restaurant, and then as well as the other side of that, Elijah's maneuvering into the world of being a connoisseur or a person that values and wants to be a master at wineries and vineyards and trying to go and just pursue this dream. And they do really good job as far as the cinematography. They even go and take the actual leap of going and shooting different shots in Paris, which I was like, normally a lot of movies or like web TV shows or whatever, they would go and maybe green screen it out or maybe go to a location that could be comparable to where the location they want to go overseas. But no, like they actually did take the time. Like when you actually have like the character Elijah going to France and going and trying to fulfill his dream, trying to go and study, and then just kind of riding around. Like they did a really good job with capturing specific moments that matter. Like even like when they had like a moment where the family, they were initially all working in the shop, like working in the back, getting things prepared, and then a place where they were at home and just interacting together. There was a lot of good authenticity that I've seen personally in my own home, like when it came to just the character interactions. That's another thing. I think that they had a really good cast in the sense of the way that they all functionally interacted. Like it seemed like this would be like a functioning, thriving, business-led family that love each other, but interact with each other completely differently. They had all the different social cues. They had all the different like funny, naturally funny moments that I think worked really well. I mean, the thing was, I was like, Courtney B. Vance, like, yo, he's a vet, man. He's an Emmy award-winning vet. And then not just that, Niecy Nash, like, she was great in this. Like, I think that she was probably the mother of the year in the sense of the way that she did and carried her performance as the mother in this story. I think she did an amazing job. A great blend of comedy and nuance and then tragedy and love all merged in with all the specific moments. And at the same time, like they didn't shadow that she has this love relationship with her son Elijah. Even if they didn't have a lot of scenes together, like it was naturally coming off. Just as much as her scenes and great chemistry with your boy Courtney B. Vance as the role of her husband Lewis. Now, the thing I'll say about this though, that and it's crazy because Niecy Nash, like she's great at comedy. Anyway, one of the things that I thought about the premise of this was very a simplistic premise, in that we've seen this before. We've seen like somebody that has this expectation of what they want to be, what they're daring to dream to do, and then they got other responsibilities. Like if you go and take like even Spider-Man, once he gets his powers and stuff like that, the tragedy of his story is that he's always dealing with this duality complex of what he really wants to do and then what his responsibility is. The difference with this one, they make a really interesting human turn in the way that the role of Elijah has to go and function throughout the beginning of this movie all the way to the very end of it. Because in the beginning, you know, he's being a dutiful son. In the beginning, he's trying to study abroad and do what he can to fulfill the dream that's in his heart, but he doesn't know how to do it, you know. And then he kind of gradually progressed into, now it's this pushing and pulling. Like, he's either one, met with a lot of opposition from people or family, or two, like a lot of praise, a lot of encouragement from different people that believe in him and are motivating him. And then towards the third act, that's when the difficulty comes in. And that is where normally things like this kind of progress in the story. Now, I think that as the way that this was actually written, I don't necessarily have an issue with that. The real issue that I have with this film in this all entirety was the way that it was actually paced and edited. Because a lot of, in the very beginning of the movie, I was kind of like, okay, this is okay, but this is cookie cutter. Like, there's nothing really meat and bones happening. And then midway, there's something really pivotal happens. He goes and meets with his love interest. They start to kind of like dissect certain things about each other. And then it just kind of speeds up and goes forward. Now, that moment I get for time's sake, I get for continuity's sake, but then there's different displacements and moments where I can't tell or gauge how much time is passing. I can't gauge and tell, you know, why was this not explored or talked about more? Like, okay, when did this person become this person to the main character Elijah? When did Elijah, you know how to do this? I didn't know this about Elijah. When did he start doing this heavily? When did he start dealing with these different kind of other emotions? And I think that because like there was a lot of pacing and jumping in the way that it was actually edited and progressed, it takes away from the impact, the emotional impact, where some of these heavy scenes should have really hit me, because they don't take enough time to kind of progress the way the story goes. Now, to be honest, again, the story is very simplistic, and so maybe it was kind of like, all right, let's get to this point, let's get to this point, let's get to this point. But I think that there's enough material there's enough character actors that really could have made some progressional moments, even if they were like heavy-handed. Like there was a moment where Elijah and his dad had this moment in this new location that the dad was kind of foreseeing and talking to him about, and like Elijah was like, yo, I can't, I'm good, you know. And the next moment, like, it's kind of like, oh, well, time has passed, versus the moment that he leaves the shop. Like, what is the dad's interaction? Does he go to his wife, talk to the wife? What is the son's thoughts? Like, oh my gosh, like, because there's so many different ways that you can kind of position it and elevate the emotional appeal, as much as deal with the consequence of what happens. And that could be just a small scene, and maybe it could be a progressional thing. But I think that the way that it was paced and edited is the real issue that I have with this film, as well as the third act. So the third act, when you get to the very end of it, I kind of felt like the third act reminded me of a couple different films I didn't necessarily like the ending. Because it was kind of like, I feel like personally, the way, and this is not a spoiler, I think that the ending of this film should have ended fundamentally different if they would have progressed and shown where things were going to go. I think that even in the end credits, like the beginning end credits, it shouldn't even been words. It should have been like the process of where these characters are going, what they're doing, where their evolution is, because then it would have added even more of an impact of everything that's kind of happened to them through the consequences of tragedy, loss, and pain, as much as the needing for family, the needing for elevation of heart and motivation. And it just didn't go there for me. It didn't thrive on that. Like, it just kind of like ended, and it was kind of like, oh, okay. And I'm kind of like, why would I go and watch this again? Like, where's the real character motivation behind what's really happened and what I've seen? And sadly, that is the real issue that I kind of have with this film. Now, the main actor that plays the role of Elijah, I think that he's a really good actor. He played in this role of the movie that I looked at recently. It was Underwater. And he was one of the highlights of the film. Like, his moments that he was in the film, like, he stole the show. And I think that they should have given him as much emotional moments and character-based moments as they could have. And not to say that they didn't give him some really good material to kind of work with, but I think that there should have been way more questioning that should have happened. Now, maybe, I don't know, like the way that this was kind of like done, I would have probably added like, okay, there's a moment where like Elijah's just by himself. He's not with any other person. Like he's not going and testing the smell and the fragrance of like this wine. He's not, you know, working. He's not talking with anybody. He's not with his girlfriend. Like he's just alone. There's not enough moments with Elijah by himself. Like he's going, maybe he's riding a bike or doing something, but I think that would have helped was maybe like him taking a record or maybe him talking within himself about what he's battling. So then I can kind of get into his mind, I can get into his heart, and I can get into, honestly, the meat and potatoes of him as a character, as a character study. Because this is a very fascinating dream to have, you know what I'm saying? Like it'd be kind of like a person that, you know, was brought up in a industry, a computer industry. Dad's one of the best in the computer industry. And then all of a sudden the person's like, yo, I want to be this type of baker. I want to be, you know, doing this, like with specific cakes, and why. You know what I'm saying? Like, not to say they do some really interesting things with Courtney B. Vance's Lewis, because you get to find certain things progressionally about his past and why he's doing what he's doing, why he's raising the restaurant, why he wants Elijah to go and benefit from what he did before. And then like towards the second and third act, like he starts to step up, but it's kind of like it's just such a fast turn that they fast passed it too quickly for me to make it believable. And I think that even when they do mention a lot of his past, they use a lot of exposition as opposed to just showing certain character moments. Like what would have really benefited was there was a moment where Elijah and his dad were talking at like this furnace, and nobody was there but them. And like he's kind of like talking to his dad, and he's like, "Well, do you need help with this?" He's like, "Yeah, I don't feel like doing this." They could have literally showed like a similar moment happening with Courtney B. Vance's Lewis character and his dad. Even if it was a small fleeting moment, like just certain things that they could have added to this, they could have made it a really good film. Now, let's go ahead and just break it down as far as what my number rating is. I would say I would give this a 6.5, maybe 7. I'll leave it at 6.5 out of 10. I think the potential was there. I think there was nothing wrong with the story arc or the way it was kind of written. I think it was just progressed differently than I would have liked, and I didn't like the way the pacing or the editing happened in terms of how much they had there and meat that they actually did have there as far as this is a story. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Make sure you go and check out the movie for yourself. Leave in the comment section below what you actually think of it. Show support to the Netflix and streaming community, as well as, of course, amazing filmmakers that are out there. There's a lot of great stories. Can't wait to see what is coming next. All right, keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Peace, guys.